Okay, so today I'm doing a front wheel bearing job on this 2006 Chevy Trailblazer, and I guess we're going to be going through this together. And I've done a little research on it, and I already bought the bearings for it. So here we go. I already have the tire off, and I'm going to show you what we're going to be doing here. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to take off of this I want to take this brake caliper off, and it's held together by two bolts on the back side. So I hope I got the right socket for this. I think it's a I think it's a 11/16. Well, as you can see, I'm removing the two bolts that hold this brake system together here, and I'm just taking this one off. I just broke it loose, and I'm removing it. Now I got the socket on this other one, and I'm going to remove that. I have an impact wrench. If you don't have an impact wrench, you'll probably have to get yourself a 1/2 inch breaker bar, because these things are really hard on there. They're really tough. So get yourself a nice long breaker bar, or a 1/2 inch socket with a with an extender. Okay, so just remove the two bolts that hold the brake housing on. And what I'm going to do is remove this brake housing. From the rotor. Might have to tap that off or pry it off. Don't forget you got your brake line on here. So okay, what you want to do at this point is get yourself a couple of bungee cords or rope or whatever you have. Now I gotta get this caliper brake housing out of the way. Then what you want to do at this point, take this rotor off, and set that aside. Next thing you want to do is there's three bolts holding this flange here, and we have to get rid of those, and I'll show you what they look like. Okay, these are the three bolts. You can see the threaded end of them, and there's another one on the other side here. There's three of them, and I'll show you what they look like in the back. Okay, so here they are. There's one. You can see the other. There's this two here, and you can see the other one in the back there, hiding back there. So you have three, and we'll have to remove those. So here we go. Okay, I've finished removing the three bolts that were holding that housing, and now what we have to do is remove the big nut from the axle, and that's going to require a 35mm for this particular case socket, and that's what it looks like. It's a big socket for that nut in the middle. So make sure that it's on there pretty good. Might have to tap it in a little bit. You're going to have to either have an impact for this or a, like I say, big breaker bar. And remove that. Okay. Now, screw that in a little bit, a quarter of an inch or so, and then what you have to do is pound on that. What you want to do is break that away from that, well, because it's kind of rusted on there. You have to pound that axle in, or so you can get this now, depending on whether or not you got a new sensor cable for that or not, sometimes it comes with the bearing unit, sometimes it doesn't. If your new bearing comes with the sensor cable, like this one does, okay, it has the cable on it, and if that's the case, you might, unless for some reason you want to keep the old one, you can just go ahead and cut it off, and I have a new cable on that one, so you can go ahead and just cut the old one off. Now, depending on whether or not they gave you a new nut, you're either going to hang on to this. In this particular case, they did give me a new nut. So there you go. Comes right off here. Two parts. There's your spindle here, axle, whatever you want to call it. And there's the old bearing. Looks pretty rusted and gone. Looks like a lot of water got in there at one time and really rusted the thing up. So make sure you match these things up, so before you even start putting the new one on there, make sure that they're identical. Okay, even the width, you make sure that the width is the same. Everything's got to be the same on these, so make sure that everything is identical. Okay, if for some reason they didn't give you the sensor wire with that, you can remove the old one. There's a little L wrench right here that you can remove, and this whole unit will come out. Be careful with it because it's very sensitive. And get your Allen, looks like about 3/16 or so, maybe a quarter, and remove that and then set it aside very carefully so you don't damage it. If not, you can just cut it off and then just use your new one. Okay, so there you go. Now the next thing I want to do is clean as much rust. You have a file. You have a file. Go ahead and get as much of the rust, clean this off as you can, where the new bearing is going to sit in this housing here. And it's going to seat in there. So you want to get rid of as much of this rust as you can off of here. Clean this out. Okay, so before we start putting these things back together, we got to match these things up. So make sure before you put these things back on, that you absolutely make sure that they're identical. That's in width, in diameter, every which way. You have to make sure that they're identical. If they're not, do not install them, or at least find out why they're different. Okay? Well, one of the first things I want to do is I think I'm going to put some grease on this thing. This is just regular grease. This makes everything go back together easier, that's all. No particular reason. Bearings are already pre-greased, so you don't have to worry about that. This is just so things slide together easier. Now, this particular bearing had a little O-ring to it, and it fits right here. Little O-ring, and it's a rubber O-ring, and it fits right on the end there. Now, I'm going to show you something. When we install this, you make sure that this O-ring stays there, doesn't slide off. Now, this particular flange that's in the inside, you can go ahead and pound off as much rust as you can. Do not bend this or warp it. You can scrape it or do whatever you want. You could even paint it if you want, but you don't want to warp it or pound it out of shape, okay? And scrape it. You can lightly pound on it to get the rust off, but don't bend it. Okay, so we got flange back on there. Make sure you push the wire through there. Make sure your flange is on the right way. Slide that on there. Put some little anti-seize on the bolts. And carefully feed that cable through there. Gently work your bearing on there, lining up these bolts. Yeah, see if you can get one started and line it up. Okay. Now there again, make sure that rubber bushing isn't pinched in there. Make sure it's riding free. Well, like I say, I'm showing you that bushing. And you'll be able to see this bushing in here. This is not bushing, but it's a O-ring. And make sure you twist it. Give her a couple little turns. Make sure it's not bound up in there or something, or doing something weird. Now what you could do with this flange, make sure you put the flange on the right way. flat part here should be flat part here, this open part should be flat part should be where the caliper is going to be. So, okay, I'm going to just bolt this thing down now. We got the 3 bolts started, so make sure your cable is free through that hole if you got one. If you're going to use your old one, make sure that you probably do that about now before you put your rotor on. Otherwise it makes it a little harder. So, okay, let me tighten those up and I'll be back. Okay, so finished putting the 3 bolts back in there and tightening that up. And now we're going to put this rotor back on. And we're going to put our brake assembly back on. So let me get down here and take these bungees off of here. And when you want these bungees to hold, they never hold. You want them to come off. Take grip. I just got to line up the holes and screw these things back in here. Okay. Is that alright then? That's okay, so there you go. I got the rotor back on and 2 bolts to hold it, one in on each side. And all we got to do now is run up the center bolt. And there you go. Good. Put your tire back on, and then you can double sure, make sure that that bolt is snugged up good. Other than that, we're pretty much done. All you have to do is replace the wire, go up there, and all you have to do is take the old one off and just replace this one in its place. It's no big deal, just run it on up. Basically, that's about it. All you got to do is put your tire back on and you're all set to go. I hope the video helped you out as much as it helped me. I got to do the other side. Well, there you go. Got to do the other side now. Doing this side really helped me out. A lot of do's and don'ts, and I guess the main thing is make sure you don't miss the small details. Small details mean a lot. I started to put the guard on there backwards, and I caught myself. And make sure you don't forget the harness through the hole, and the brake caliper, you might have to collapse it in order to get it back on. I didn't have to, but you might have to get a C-clamp and force the piston back in there in order to get that brake on. But other than that, it's not a bad little project. Okay, I'm going to put the tire back on this thing and then go to the other side. Okay, hope it helped you out.